one you suggest developers target at this point?
I will say that it's probably safe to target 8.1
Yes.
for Windows Store apps. You certainly won't hurt anything to target 8.0.
Okay.
Just in case there is still an install base that hasn't updated to 8.1 yet.
Okay.
Right. So for that sake, I think we'll just stick on 8.0.
Perfect.
Just to prove it works, right? Again, we have the development build option.
And like you
we
mentioned,
can
the profiler
auto-connect
is
the
right
profiler. Another cool feature here is that I can include the script solution or the script projects for my C# scripts into my Visual Studio solution for this project type.
This one kind of edit the C# scripts within Visual Studio as soon as you open up this solution.
Exactly. Yep. So again, the same thing I did on Windows Phone. I'm going to go and I'm going to create a build directory for this.
Okay.
And I'm going to call this one just Windows Store Apps or WSA.
Okay.
This is just my way of organizing.
Yeah, so the naming scheme actually doesn't matter here. It's just a way.
It's whatever makes sense to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. These are demo naming schemes for me. So again, I'm gonna build it out into a Visual Studio solution.
Yeah.
You'll notice why that's going on. There's also a build and run button, and that does enable you to go ahead and build and then debug without touching Visual Studio.
Perfect.
Which is pretty cool if you're not real comfortable with Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Simplicity
is key.
Mm-hmm. And it's available on phone as well, so you can debug to a phone device right from Unity.
I like it. Again, building the post-processing player, which is actually the target that our XAML app will
That's the executable, if you will.
Exactly.
That runs the game piece.
Yep.
Yep.
It kind of builds it, secures it, locks it within the application itself. Here we go.
So we have a Windows Store app solution. I'm going to open that up in Visual Studio. And you'll notice that I need to get a developer license. We didn't do that before.
So it's going to go ping the mothership,
so
come back.
This is something that the first time you load up Visual Studio for Windows Store apps, Windows 8 development, that you'll have to do.
Yeah.
You've got to get a developer license. And it's a one-time sign-in. I agree. So I'm going to go ahead and do this here.
Yeah. So it's basically just verifying that you are in fact a developer, that you have an account. And again, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to set you with something like BizSpark or DreamSpark to help waive some of these costs and make your barrier to entry as low as possible.
Okay. Yep.
Now you're signed in.
Preparing the solution. It's going to ask me if I want to target to Windows 8.1. I'm going to skip that for now. It is really easy to do later on simply by right-clicking on the project.
Right.
And saying retarget to Windows 8.1. So if you kind of mess up and go, oh man, I really wanted to target 8.1, but I don't feel like re-exporting, you can go ahead and do it from here.
Okay.
One thing I do want to note that I forgot on the first demo was every subsequent time you export from Unity now, after you have the first Visual Studio solution export, let's say I need to go back and I need to make some changes to my level.
Okay.
You know, maybe I need to reposition something, add some new objects, add some new scenes, right? Change my scripts. Anything I do in Unity, when it goes and re-export, it's actually just going to change this data folder.
Right.
So it's not going to touch the rest of my Visual Studio solution. It's going to leave it all alone so that any changes you make, let's say in your manifest file or your main page, maybe you've got some custom elements in your main page XAML, maybe you've got a Microsoft add control in there. Unity's not going to touch that. It's just going to update this data folder for you. So Windows Store apps, one thing to be careful of is that it is going to export to ARM-based architecture by default.
So essentially tablets.
So that would be, like a Windows RT tablet.
Right.
If you plan on debugging on a Windows machine that's x86, x84, or x64, you're going to have to come in here and change it to x86.
So here is the configuration manager next to the debug button.
Yep. So
this threw me off my first time as well.
Yeah, it still gets me to this day.
Yeah.
Because I'm expecting to just export it out and run it and go. But now I've kind of got this in my workflow. If I go to the debug, drop down here, configuration manager, I'm going to change the active solution platform to x86.
So you only have to do this one time, essentially. It's the first time you build that project.
Right. Now, another note here is if I'm getting ready to publish my application and I'm going to upload it to the store or I'm going to send it to some of my friends to test it out, I want to build it in the master build configuration.
It's not, in fact, release, which is what you're generally used to.
Yeah, you notice we've got release and debug, those are the standard Visual Studio configurations. Unity has added this new level called master that removes absolutely all debug profiling hooks from the app. And I've seen frame rate drop.
Absolutely.
Release, right? So super important to remember that little tip.
Yeah, you're removing profilers, removing any console.logs, things like that.
Yeah, and so like if you're testing your game on a phone and the frames per second's down, in the 20s, and you're like, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
Just go back to Visual Studio and double check and make sure that you've got the master configuration.
Right, you're not actually in debug mode.
Right. All right, so the next demo, actually, let's talk about Universal Apps real quick.
Okay.
All right, so as we mentioned before, Universal Apps, something that we announced this year as part of our ongoing effort to combine platforms.
Yeah.
So we've got the solution now where we can export one single Visual Studio solution for Windows Store and Windows Phone. And they do some really cool code sharing between the platforms. It makes for nice code updates, code changes, easy code changes.
Right.
And Unity's taking advantage of it now. And you can export to Universal Apps. Again, it does require Windows 8.1 and Windows Phone 8.1 targeting those devices for Universal Apps. And so I'm going to show you how easy that is to export. Again.
So really it's the same data model that we're keeping, so same information. And the only thing you may ever have to change on your Universal app would be perhaps the front end or the visuals that a person sees when loading an application.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to change my SDK type to Universal 8.1.
Okay.
Right? And I'm simply going to do build again. I'm going to create a new folder for this one called Universal. If I can type. It's getting late in the day.
That happens to the best of us.
It's certainly coffee time.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Well, we are in Redmond.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see how much easier it is to actually develop games at this point where you can literally drag and drop and hit a button to deploy to a specific platform. When you think about how much
it's
different
fantastic.
and more difficult it was years ago in the C++
It's incredible.
days.
And Unity's making it easier and easier with each release, it seems. I mean, I started playing around with Unity about 6 years ago, and to see the evolution over time of how many platforms it's targeting is amazing.
Yep.
When I first started looking at it, it was Mac and PC only.
Yeah.
And now, I think there's 16 different platforms that you can target with Unity, which is phenomenal. And as a game developer myself, I want to be on all platforms I can that makes sense for my game, so that I'm maximizing my revenue, my install base, all that stuff. So again, here we see we've got the same style solution that's going to be set up for Universal Apps.
Hope you have a beast of a machine over there because you've got 3 instances of Visual Studio running at once, and Unity. Look, this folder structure looks a little bit different, so why don't you walk us through this real quick?
So let's take a look at this, and we'll zoom in here a little bit so we can see the structure. So we've got a couple different things going on here. We've got this shared project, and in it you'll see that our main page and our app.xaml are there now. Mm-hmm. But our data folder's there now too.
Right.
Unity, right? So that means that Unity's exporting essentially shared code for each platform.
Yes, the
platforms.
same Unity project, as it were.
Right. And so now I've got a Windows 8.1 project. So this is going to target those Windows Store platforms that we talked about.
All right, whether it's ARM tablets or
the
a
PCs,
desktop.
Right? The touch computers. And then we've got a Windows Phone 8.1 project here, and these are going to be the phone projects. And now it's going to have the main data folder, right? It's going to have a data folder for each specific platform.
Right.
And anything that needs to be built for that platform. You see these manage assemblies.txt.
Mm-hmm.
And then the platform specific assets.
Okay, so those things like stored images, live tiles, things like that.
Exactly. And then, each platform is going to have a different manifest for uploading to the store.
Right, basically a configuration file.
Mm-hmm. These are those script assemblies that I was talking about that it generated out. So if you're using Unity VS and you've got the plugin installed, you can manage it all from one single instance of Visual Studio, which is great.
Exactly.
And you can attach and debug from this. And again, if I export, it's only going to export and change the data folder from Unity from here on out.
Easy enough. I like it.
So it's actually, you want to run one of these things?
Yeah, I want to see this. We've been talking. Let's actually put up some of this work.
All right. Well, I'm just hit debug. And I want to do this. I did this on purpose. I forgot to change it from ARM to x86.
Yeah, threw all kinds of errors down there.
This is what we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
If you don't go and change. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. I'm going to go to Configuration Manager. I got all this spew down here in the console.
It did not like that.
All right, so, it couldn't find all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's because it's on the wrong platform. It's looking for ARM. All right, so I've got that changed. I'm going to run local machine.
Here you see building all of our scripts.
Oh, did I change it? I did. Okay.
What did Carl do before? Yeah, you may have to clean that
Do a
solution.
clean, build. Oh my goodness.
It's missing something.
Yeah. Well, it's got this this crazy
Ellipsis.
dot underscore.
Oh, yeah. I actually saw someone with that problem several weeks ago. Do you want to try the Windows 8 project? See how that deployed?
Yeah, let's see what's going on.
Because we were building somebody else's project on the fly. So let's see how this worked out. Did Carl miss something earlier?
That's a risky venture, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Carl may have missed something earlier. Again, it's the joys of doing a live tech demo.
Yeah, for the sake of moving on here.
So we don't have Adam's original project, but perhaps we'll have more time to show that off tomorrow. But again, we're building Carl's Unity project, so he may have left out a script or two along the way. So I'll have to take an opportunity to kind of build through that later on.
I'm just going to create a new project here.
Okay. In the meantime, you're going to put together a new project for us?
Real fast.
All right.
Test my live coding skills.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to create a cube. Okay, there's a fancy cube.
That was a nice
camera. I'm going to add a light to the scene so that it's lit. All right. Okay. Maybe do some translation on the cube to make it a little more interesting.
I like it.
Right. Okay.
Between you and Adam, I mean, I don't know who's making better cubes today.
I don't know. Mine's pretty good. Save my scene.
Okay. So every new scene, you're going to add this scene to your actual build, right?
Yep.
So there's our asset.
There it is.
Scene one.
All right, let's export to Windows again.
We have our C# solution. Starting Windows 8. Let's see how this takes off. Again, it's always smart to stay organized with these things, so that's why you see Jason has a build folder for all of his project builds.
Yeah, I just kind of made a habit of it now.
Yeah, so do I.
I typically try to put my scenes, animations, everything, and it's something that I've seen other people do in demos, right? It just seems like a good idea to organize. I've seen some of these projects get pretty ungainly over time as you build them out. So I'm going to check my build configuration. Here we go. Debug local machine.
Okay, here comes our new project. Building,
Right,
building,
so
building,
we've got-
and there we go.
All right. This thank you help for telling me that I can switch between apps.
Just slide to the side. And there's
our scene there.
Oh, I
So-
like that. Look at that lighting.
Yeah.
Woo!
So that's our fancy cube. I put a little abstract on it. I tilted it. I don't think Adam did that.
I can tell you're trying to go for that little Unity logo there. Very nice. So there it is, our app.
So evidence that it does run on the Windows platform.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so with that in mind, we have our exporting to Windows Phone, Windows 8, and then Universal Apps. So why don't you tell us a bit about...
Let's talk about running Windows Phone real quick. Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. Try saying
got time.
Make sure it proves.
We do have time. So I'm going to switch back to Windows Phone, and I'm going to do that again.
The proof is in the pudding, as they say, correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so we saw how easy it was to make that nice, beautiful cube scene.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that lighting, though. So let's see how it comes out on Windows Phone. And for Windows Phone, there are actually two ways of testing this, right? I mean, we can use it in the simulator.
Yeah, so we're going to use the phone emulator.
Yep.
And then I'm going to I can connect my 1520
Okay, your choice.
right to the machine, and we can run that, and we'll get a nice camera shot of doing that. But I want to do the emulator first.
Okay.
Let's make sure it runs.
Building, building, building. So the emulator is actually running something called Hyper-V. So that's virtualization in Microsoft technology that allows us to basically emulate having a phone running on your computer. So all the touch inputs are there. So if you have a touch screen, you can actually touch your screen and it'll interact with the phone screen. Or if you have a mouse, you can then click and you can see round points throughout the application to see where you're actually touching. You even have a multi-gesture support. So you can hit that button there, and it'll make it seem as though you're touching with 2, 3, or multiple fingers at once. So here we go. We're loading our application. I noticed before you had different options for the simulator there. Can you explain that for us real quick?
Yeah, so we have our different device configurations, right? So you can see here in the background that I'm targeting a Windows Phone 8.1 with a 4-inch screen and 512 megabytes of RAM.
Okay.
That's a very common configuration in the field in our install base in those emerging markets we talked about earlier. Right. These are those low memory devices that you definitely want to try to target if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's our cube. I rather like it in landscape mode.
Yeah, and again, you can lock it to landscape mode in the app manifest,
right,
just to be clear.
Yep. We do have a little debug screen up here for our frame counter.
Yeah, frame counter, fill rate, things like that.
Look at that. We got, 66 frames per second.
I like it.
1080p.
Beautiful.
That's better than the next-gen consoles, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can also debug this on a device.
Okay.
Let me hook this up.
So you can plug in your actual phone you walk around and carry in your pocket every day.
Yeah, and once you register for your developer account,
yes,
and you have a Windows Phone device, and we'll tell you a couple of ways that you can maybe get one if you're developing a great game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they have some pretty cheap options with the 520 series
Absolutely.
For less than $100.
But again, you can reach out to your local evangelist and see how they could potentially get you hardware for you or your company to test on as well.
So I'm going to run this.
Okay, so it looks like we have your phone connected at this point.
Let's see what happens here.
So from Visual Studio, it's connected via USB to your phone. We see Unity launching, and there we go.
Yeah, there's my cube.
All right, you still have all the same debug information that you previously had.
There it is, landscape. Right, so I'm debugging live from Visual Studio onto my phone.
Beautiful. And back, and it goes right back there.
It is important to note, though, that if you want to debug on a phone, that you need to register that phone with your developer account, so that you can sideload applications and deploy from Visual Studio.
Right.
Okay. And that there is a tool with the SDK that allows you to do that.
There's the Windows Phone SDK, which you can download for free at our Visual Studio website. So what's next on the agenda?
So let's talk about hardware real quick. And I totally skipped that slide. Hardware overview. We do, our platforms do target a large scope of hardware.
Okay.
In particular, when we're talking about Windows 8. So let's talk about that. So Windows Store, again, these are the apps that target tablets, all-in-ones, desktops, laptops. Essentially any device ranging from those tablets to full-blown gaming PCs. So the specs are all over the place.
Yeah.
If you've been in game development for a long time, the same concepts apply.
That's right.
Know your platform, know what your game can run on.
Know your demographic, who you're trying to target.
Right. So, don't go build Crysis and expect it to run on an ARM tablet.
Right. That was the ongoing meme in 2007.
Kind of
Can it run Crysis?
Right. So these are some typical minimum specs, right? We've got ARMs, x86, x64 platform processors. 1 gig of RAM's typically the minimum I've seen recently.
Okay.
GPUs. It's important to note some of our ARM-based devices, like the Surface RT, are DirectX feature level 9.1. So there's a lot of missing shader support, modern shader support on
tessellation, things like that.
So you're essentially kind of constrained to shader model 2 at that point.
Okay.
With that level 9.1. Now, again, if you plan on targeting stuff like that and you've got very simple graphics in your game, it's not really a problem.
Right.
So it's just advanced rendering techniques that you're going to run into issues with.
Okay.
All the way up to the latest DirectX 11.2. and all the goodness there. Minimum resolution on a Windows 8 machine is 1024 by 768.
That's the old school 4:3 look.
Right, yeah. And there's not many devices out there that range in that level anymore.
Okay.
Input-wise, mouse, keyboard, the standard PC inputs, touch becoming more prevalent, right?
Yeah,
With tablets and all-in-ones, and even touchscreen monitors. And then also gamepad controllers, which is awesome, right?
Absolutely, and that's built
So
into
you
Unity
can factor,
itself.
it's all, you kind of just get it out of the box, gamepad controller support
Yeah.
with Unity.
And before we skip over touch, I just wanted to point out that previously touch was a requirement for Windows 8 applications. But in the last year, we've actually dropped that requirement. But it's still best practice to at least inform your users that they no longer require touch. So if, for example, you need gamepad control, it's good to leave a little note right there in the description of your application in the store so that people with, say, a tablet don't download your game and not have a gamepad connected and suddenly assume they can play on a flight when they're just touching with their fingers.
Right. Windows Phone 8 hardware. These are the minimum specs. We've got all of our phones have Qualcomm processors. The minimum is going to be the S4 dual core, very capable processor. Minimum 512 megabytes of RAM on these phone devices. I do want to note that if you have trouble getting your game running on one of these devices, you can opt out of that. We have a session, I believe it's later this week, with Jaime that's going to go way more in depth on this stuff.
Yes, that's on Thursday morning.
As far as all the technical details of exporting and how do you configure your Visual Studio solution to do things like this.
Little workarounds for everything. Get a little more oomph and power out of your device.
Again, GPU is going to be constrained down to DirectX feature level 9.3.
Yep.
So it's going to be like shader model 2 with a couple extra little features added in. These are the standard resolutions. We do the 800 by 480 ranging up to 1080p. And then sensor-wise, if your game makes use of sensors,
yes.
We have the standards: accelerometer, light, proximity. Some phones have gyrometers, magnemometers, so you can, it's just compasses. It depends on the platform. And if you're going to target any of that, just make sure that you're using robust coding to make sure that your game doesn't crash if that doesn't have that sensor.
Yeah.
Another note, Windows Phone. It is a requirement on that platform to have a back button.
Yep.
Right. So it used to be a hardware requirement. Now it's just a requirement. Some of the new phones actually have soft buttons for back.
Right.
Right. The HTC One.
Very good point.
Right. Some of the new Nokia phones they just announced are going to have soft key buttons. Typical behavior is the app's going to pop in the back stack. So if I've got a app that I'm navigating through and I hit the back button, it's going to go backwards.
Yeah.
If I have a modal dialog, it's going to dismiss that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Unity handles all this for us out of the box.
Yeah, it does. It will pick that up. I'll show you some code on the next slide to kind of how to handle that in your Unity script.
Okay.
If you're on your home page and you hit the back button, it's going to exit the game or the app. If you're in gameplay and they hit the back button, it's a good idea to maybe throw up a pause menu. Right? I've seen a lot of developers handle it that way. You could do I guess you could have some fun with it too.
Yeah, definitely.
Depends on what you want to do with your game. The back button in Unity is actually the escape key. It's mapped to the escape key. So I can just check, hey, am I hitting escape? And you can kind of handle it the same way. So if I'm on a PC and I hit escape, usually that brings up the pause menu. And so you could do the same thing in your phone game. So here's just some basic code to show how to do this. So the first sec here is, hey, this is how I'm doing a back repress event in my phone page. And you can see that I'm going to cancel that event because I want to call Unity and tell it that the back button's been pressed.
Okay.
Right? And so in your update or wherever you handle input, you can get the get key down state for escape. And if it's been pressed, I can handle it there. I can quit or I can pause my game, whatever I need to do that fits my game.
Okay, I like it.
Hardware APIs, right? Again, these are all built into Unity. There's nothing special you have to do to get this functionality.
I think it tests these all in the simulator as well, once you actually deploy.
Touch, microphone, webcam, the sensors and location services.
Okay.
And you can access all of these from scripting like you would do any other platform. Mm-hmm. So it's nice, great, seamless, easy to do. Let's talk about some platform-specific features. And these are features that can kind of make your game stand out a bit on the platform.
Absolutely.
Right? Some of those include live tiles notifications, and that applies to Windows Store and Windows Phone.
Okay.
Right? So I can have high scores. I can tell you that your friend has played his turn.
Yeah, using push notifications, things
right?
like that.
You can use these push notifications.
Excellent use of Azure mobile services, might I say.
Yeah, nice plug for your module tomorrow. Make a good splash image for your game. That's going to be presented every time your game is launched, right? No matter what. Mm-hmm. Contracts. So setting charms, share charms. These are all those Windows 8 charms.
Yep.
That
kind of pop out on the right-hand side as you cover your mouse.
Maybe. I'm in presenter mode, so I don't think it's going to work. But I can do things like I can share out to my social networks from my game using the share charm. And that's a platform feature that comes with Windows 8 and is available to Windows Store apps. Snapping. It is important that any application can be snapped on the Windows Store.
Right.
Windows Store app platform.
You can gracefully handle, half-screen
So
views.
yeah, you have to handle it. A lot of times if I snap something, it'll get put into like a half-screen view or even smaller than that. And there's ways to set a minimum width on that. But just handle that gracefully, don't crash.
Right.
I've seen some pretty innovative stuff where people have changed the gameplay state or mode to a smaller, maybe vertical mode on the screen.
Not a bad idea.
For example, solitaire. I'm playing horizontally, and I put it in snap, and it rearranges the cards up into a vertical arrangement.
Or even a game that only plays through snap view. I always want to see something like that. Maybe I can have a snap view game, so I'm playing a Tetris like clone, and then on my three-quarter view, I'm kind of watching YouTube in the background.
Cloud storage, again, Azure mobile services. I can sync gameplay state across the cloud.
So you pick it up, maybe save on your Windows 8 device, then switch over to your phone, and you pick up exactly where you left off.
Yeah. Windows Phone, a lot of the same things. Back button, make sure that's handled gracefully. That is a platform feature that users expect to work. Live tiles notifications, again, a good splash image for my game. Launchers and choosers, these are things that are be able to pick photos, launch websites, good monetization models, and then screen recording. I can take screenshots of my game, share it out. Some of the newer services that let you record clips of your game and share.
Not a bad idea,
right? Stuff like that, and that applies to any mobile platform, really.
Okay, so it sounds like it'd be a lot of work to get a lot of these going on our platform. So there's got to be a better way, or has someone come up with some sort of tool or plugin for us to use?
Well, Prime 31, right?
All right.
It's a great, we can plug the Prime 31 plugins again. Again, free. Download at prime31.com.
Good for the next year.
Go to the plugins page, and you can pick Windows or Windows Phone and download them.
Yep.
Here's that.
And coming around the home stretch, we only have a couple of things left here.
$400 plus.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's talk about plugins real quick and what that architecture looks like in your assets. So when you're adding plugins for the Windows and Windows Phone platform in your Unity project, this is what the folder structure needs to be. So assets plugins, that's a standard in Unity. Right. All of the plugins should be there. If I'm targeting Windows Phone 8, I've got a WP8 folder. For universal apps in Windows Phone 8.1, I've got Windows Phone 8.1. For Windows 8, I've got Metro or Metro Win80.
Yeah.
And this is all new if you've done anything before.
Right.
This is stuff they've added in recently. And then again, for Windows 8.1, I've got Metro or Metro Win81. If I need to discern between the two versions of Windows 8, I can do that within the Metro folder.
And to be clear, it's Unity that requires us to have these this naming scheme, because it's specifically looking for a plugins folder and then specifically looking for a plugins/WP8 folder. If you name it anything else, it's not going to know which platform it's for.
Yeah, and the plugin vendors are really good about when you install and import into your Unity project. They map out this folder structure at the installation. So this is here more for informational debugging purposes in case you run into any issues, or you need to manually update your plugin DLL later on. Other third-party plugins.